Come on. And it goes on, and we'll hit this. Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, live show number 254. You will see a new face to us today because we have a special co-host today, Mr. Jordan Hollander with Hotel Tech Report. He is the co-founder and CEO. How did you get the CEO from your brother? I mean, did you guys like wrestle over it or something? Or
Yeah, we wrestle over everything. That's basically what our board meetings are. No, Adam's much more focused on product and ops, and so I focus a lot more on commercialization strategy. So it just kind of naturally fit there.
Excellent. Also with us, we have the pleasure of Ms. Adele Gutman and also Mr. Ben Hanley. And I think we're going to have a few other drop-ins on this pretty quick. Tristan will be jumping. Speaking of the devil himself.
Tristan?
Hey, how you doing, buddy? Okay?
I'm chilling. How you doing, man?
I can see you just all relaxed and chilled out there, buddy.
I guess I should have
a lot more, so I'm more relaxed.
And I think Mr. Tim Peter will be dropping in as well as Valyn really quickly here. So anyway, Jordan, we know we have limited time with you, and thanks for making the crack in your schedule between things. It was technology that was our curse because I was sending out emails into the nether void. Hey, Valyn.
Hi.
Valyn, meet Jordan. Jordan, meet Valyn.
Hi, Jordan. Hi, Jordan.
Hey, what's up, Valyn? How you doing?
Good, thanks. Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
I think everybody already knows Valyn, but that's okay. All right, so
everybody knows Valyn.
That's true. Actually, yeah, you're right. She does. All right, so Jordan, a little bit about Hotel Tech Report. Where'd it come from? What we plan with it, Mr. Tim?
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me, Lauren. It's been a long time coming. Pumped to be here. So a little bit on my background. We'll give the spark notes. Started out in investment management. So I was an equity analyst investing in public companies, and I got some exposure to consumer travel and technology. So we invested in companies like Wyndham, Sabre, Dunkin' Donuts, TripAdvisor. So kind of got to see the whole range of companies in this space. Then also some other companies in the technology B2B space like Avid Technology that makes Media Composer and Pro Tools and all the software that it looks like Tim's got some guitars behind him, so I think he knows what it is.
I almost went to work for Pro Tools 23 years ago before Avid bought them.
During the war.
Yeah, 26 years ago, excuse me, rather. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't interrupt.
So basically saw that side of the world, went from there to work in private equity, investing in boutique hotels, have some stories that I'll jump back into as I get to the Hotel Tech Report story that kind of manifested a few years later. So saw technology and consumer investing, went and invested actually in hotels, but not really operations focused. From there, I went to do my MBA at Kellogg in Chicago. While I was there, I worked on the SPG team in global partnerships, like optimizing our strategy. Basically, how do we get more BCG and McKinsey consultants to stay at our properties more frequently, and do that using our experiences program and our points program, which is just a huge revenue driver for that business. While I was there, my co-founder, who we can debate on, who has the intellectual horsepower, he was starting a digital concierge business for hotels. And he was actually at the same time working for a company called Checkmate. So it was like one of the first guest messaging software companies. He was basically an interim CMO for Drew, who was the founder over there. So he was starting to get exposure to that. And he was like, I'm going to take the money that I'm getting from Checkmate and I'm going to start my own company with this. The idea behind the company was, if you look at what Groupon does at a centralized level, they create these local partnerships, drive demand into local businesses, and they get paid a lot of money to do it. And so this is kind of in the days when Groupon was exploding. The idea behind that company was, can we give hotels the ability to create a local partner network where they can sell experiences to their guests and capture some of that revenue off property? So for every dollar they're spending on property, they were spending about $2.50 off property and destination. And we're like, hotels, that's a really easy way to improve your RevPAR, or your total RevPAR. And now, there's some complexities around selling into hotels and then getting the local businesses on board that made that business really challenging. But with that business, we initially got funded by a real estate billionaire magnate in Chicago named Sam Zell, who had a few hotels at the time. And then after that, went into an accelerator with Pritzker Venture Capital, who's the family behind Hyatt. Basically, on the first day of our Pritzker accelerator, they got us in front of the CTO. And we're like, oh, shit, like, this got really fast. Basically, we're slated to be a brand standard for Hyatt-centric. So kind of like written email confirmation our product was going to be in after bashing our heads against the wall, going door to door, selling into hotels. And at the end of the summer, we basically invested that summer building out the tech to get ready to scale with them. The CTO left, they pulled spend on that project, and we were kind of left with, oh my gosh, we just spent all of our money like getting ready for Hyatt. And okay, let's take a look at the market and what are we going to do with this opportunity? We can keep going door to door. At that time, we weren't getting a great response rate on our emails to local Chicago hoteliers. And so our advisor at Pritzker basically urged us to do something really awkward and painful. And he asked us to go out into Chicago, said, you guys have email tracking software. You know who you sent emails, cold sales emails to. You know who opened and clicked them and who didn't respond. So we went door to door in what was a brutal and painful ego hit, and asked why they didn't like our offer. So after talking to about 200 GMs over like a 2 to 3 week period, we came up with these insights around what was wrong. So what was wrong in the market. And so basically we came up with these 2 insights that kind of bucketed all these. First, we were so ignorant, like there were about 25% of them that were like, hey, we're a Marriott, we can't buy your products. So that was an easy solve. And then amongst the independents and the properties that could buy our product, there was this dynamic where they said, look, guys, we're getting 200 emails a week from sales emails from vendors. Not all of those are technology. Some of them are, some in-room hardware from some Chinese manufacturer. But a lot of it is technology. A lot of it is software. And amongst those companies that are emailing us, they tell us 2 things generally. The first is that they're the number 1 company in the space. So every company is the number 1 company in the space somehow. And the other is that they're so unique and innovative that there's no one like them. And so we don't know who to trust, like what's up, what's down, and this isn't our space, and our hotel's running fine, so we don't respond to any of this stuff. It's not personal to you guys. And then for the record, they said we fit into that second category. We were claiming to be so innovative that there was no one like us, and we were confusing them. The second insight that we came up with that we came away with was there's an adverse risk-reward profile for the decision makers. So if a general manager were to bring on our product, which is called CityKey, their owner would, and let's say it works, okay? So there's two potential outcomes if they bring us on. 1, it works. 2, it doesn't. If it works, their owner or whoever, their superior says, great, you did your job. So there's no personal incentive for them to stick their neck out for us. And if for any reason there's a data breach, a guest complains about it on TripAdvisor, et cetera, that decision maker who brought it up is the first person that's like, you're that guy or gal who brought this product in here, fix it. So there's this adverse risk reward profile for the decision maker. And so we looked at that and then we started to look at, okay, well, let's plan long-term for our business. If we're going to scale this software company, first of all, we have these buyers who aren't listening for a variety of reasons. Okay, so how can we get in front of them if they're not listening? And we started talking to a lot of the marketers out there, people like Valyn, and we're asking them, well, how are you guys acquiring customers in this market? And we found that the only place that they could acquire customers was in live conferences and events, which obviously are shut down now, which makes things really challenging. And so it's live conferences and direct sales. So getting an SDR team and blasting those people with emails, super costly, super time consuming. And we were like, okay, we're not going to scale this business like this because it just doesn't make a ton of sense. We're going to have to spend so much money. And when you're in a vertical market SaaS, the total addressable market isn't big enough to justify that spend in 80% of cases, which is why a ton of companies have trouble getting past the 20 million ARR mark in this space. And so we kind of, since our egos were already depleted, we looked, we had some whiskey on our balcony in Chicago, and we said, okay, let's pretend like we're not completely biased, that we have to go forward with this business that we're working on now. Given our learnings and everything that we've kind of all the information we've gathered, what would we do now moving forward that would be the most capital efficient, highest, best risk reward profile business? And we came to the conclusion, so looking at other companies, Pritzker had invested in a company called G2 that just raised last year $100 million from LinkedIn. Basically, we saw this whole landscape of software review sites for, basically helping SMBs find the best software for their business, helping software companies scale in markets where, Ben and Tristan know this better than anyone, where Google really sucks as an acquisition channel in this space because you have a very small density of keywords and a ton of vendors bidding on them. So like it's $20 a click for a property management system, which adds up really fast.
Right.
And so we looked at the G2s, we looked at the software devices, the Capteras. We realized that none of them really work in vertical markets, and especially one with as complex a tech ecosystem as hospitality. So we threw some, against the wall. We put up a Hotel Tech Report website. We went to High Tech that I think it was 2017 was the first year, and Adam and I started on opposite sides of the trade show and just pitched our way every single vendor until we actually overlapped on this company, Digital Alchemy, that was later acquired by TravelClick. And I went to pitch them, and the woman there was like, I already told you I like your concept. Like, what do you want from me? Like, that was when we realized that we hit the whole showroom floor. And then we basically had like 60 signups that day. Now it was a free product. It's a very relatively easy sell. But the thing that really encouraged us was that we had probably 15 or 20 like either VP of sales or executive level team members at these hotel software companies that told us, we've had this idea forever, but we didn't have time to execute on it, or we were wondering when this would come up, or we spent $50,000 on Captera and we didn't convert any leads because they have so much traffic, but it's not relevant and hoteliers don't know the brand. So we got a lot of positive feedback that really encouraged us to kind of make the pivot. And, since then we work with over 650 software companies, everyone from, the startup down the street to the Oracle, Amadeus, TravelClick, Sabre, Infor. And we have a community of about 49,000 monthly hoteliers on the site. We help them find software in a variety of ways, from buyer's guides to custom recommendations based on data in the platform. And the easiest way to describe us is like we're TripAdvisor for hotel software. We help buyers find software by reading and learning from their peers.
Dang.
So short story long.
Sorry, it's a long and painful story.
Well, it's funny though. I laugh because so few people in our space have tried to bring truly new ideas to our market, right? I mean, It's not a new idea if you're a rehash of a booking platform. It's not a new idea if you're doing something in rate shopping. But bringing something that doesn't fit in an existing box into this industry is spending years beating your head against a brick wall until the brick wall falls. Yeah. And it's really hard to source people who actually know how to sell into that, because so many of the salespeople who were super successful at a Synixis or super successful at a Pegasus have absolutely no idea how to present a new concept to their Rolodex. And they realized that after a few weeks of trying, because they were so used to, they were at Synixis, so we're better than TravelClick, is what they were saying. And TravelClick saying, we're better than Synixis. And here's how we're better. When you don't have that anchor and you're trying to bring something truly new, it really triggers the risk-reward dynamic quite a bit to a whole new level, because not only are you, as a GM or director of sales or director of marketing, taking on the risk of working with a new company, you're actually taking a risk of working on a completely new concept.
Yeah, totally.
Ed, sorry, Jordan. Ed, on that, they've got software for that now. You don't need a Rolodex. You can just start things digitally. I can teach you if you want. It's all right.
What's a Rolodex?
Yeah.
Oh man,
sorry,
you're older generation. You're not being shown due respect for older generations.
No, I was trying to make like the oldies feel good that I speak their language.
I'm honestly not sure why one of these softwares didn't adopt the name Rolodex. We use it like Q-tip. Just saying. Side note.
Yeah.
To your point, it is very true, because often, and people do hop between these industries, and they're very asimilar to what they did before. And the first thing that they say out of what they do is, I'm over here now, and this is better because of exactly this compared to that, this compared to this, this compared to this. But if you ask them to talk outside the box of anything that is not already in comparison to something else, you get the blank stare. Like, well, what are you asking? Why would we need to worry about that? We're directly competing with them as to whether you buy our product or their product, not you're buying something or getting into something that didn't exist before.
Yeah. I mean, I spent years explaining to hotel GMs why they shouldn't send the same net rate to every OTA and just let them fight it out. That was the first 2-3 years of Easy Yield, was explaining to them why they should care about the different markup relationships that they have with their different OTAs. Talked about that way more than I talked about what Easy Yield did. And it was frustrating because it was also a good time. It's the hardest time to launch anything new to the hotel industry is when travel is good. There are little windows where hotels are willing to consider openly, actively look for something new to do. And it's almost always attached to business isn't as good as it needs to be.
Like now.
Right.
Yeah. Now we actually have to end the show early today. We all have to go launch new things.
Right.
So speaking of that, Jordan, you mentioned the conferences, of course, were one of the larger opportunities, and that is a kind of a pause right now at the very least. How are you retooling yourself to get the message out? How are you getting in front of people that are trying to bring things to market and so forth without the opportunity of walking up to their 10-foot table and saying, hi, do you know us? Do we know you? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so we believe that, so first of all, even like on something like coronavirus, we at Hotel Tech Report, we find that a lot of times in B2B media, you will see lots of news, which is super evanescent. And then you'll see lots of, on the company side, you'll see, we thought this was a great idea to write this content. And what we try to do at Hotel Tech Report is write evergreen content that we really profile our end users and what they're trying to learn about and provide actionable insights that will last far beyond the next 3 to 6 months. And so what that's basically enabled us to do is just focus on the long term. So our biggest focus today is on search. We think there's a 10x opportunity for us in search. The challenging part is you really have to be creative about the keywords you're going after. You have to get really, really dynamic in how you're developing content for end users. And in most spaces, you usually just copy the number one player. In our space, it's pretty uncharted waters. There is nobody really doing amazing content. So if you look at, for example, like digital marketing is actually the best category. So you look at someone like Neil Patel or Brian Dean in the digital marketing space, and their content is, I'm sure probably most people on this podcast or on this webinar have read their stuff. And why is that? Because it's actionable, because it actually helps you do your job better, and you walk away with something that you can do tomorrow or even today. And so we haven't seen anybody create content like that in this space. Today I would give us a B on it, but we're getting better, and we're bringing on some team members who are really, really skilled at that. And so our focus is all on search. We're going to start doing more video, more podcasts. We've done a little bit in the past, but the challenge that we have with that is just the time duration. So like getting someone to sign up for a webinar and really developing that content takes quite a bit of time to really do right. And so we're kind of staging ourselves to really get our editorial SEO processes in place. But yeah, we think search is the best place to reach end users, and there's just not really. There's not really like a template to use for that in this space, and so we're really trying to create it ourselves.
I'm glad you said video there, Jordan, because I remember having a rather alcoholic conversation with you, shall we say,
in New York.
on a cold, wet New York evening, talking about video. That's really good. But I've got two questions for you. With COVID-19 coming in and causing all kinds of havoc in the industry, we know that there's going to be a lot of tech companies out there where resources, staff, whatever, are changing. And how do you think that is going to impact the review status of your website when the potential is that the businesses that are being reviewed may not actually be the same? Secondly, as a follow-up question to that, here's one teeing up for you. How do you qualify the reviews? Because you called yourself TripAdvisor for the tech industry, and we know that TripAdvisor can be very easily manipulated and swayed whichever way you want. What do you guys use, or what processes do you use to make sure that the quality of the reviews are tip-top and relevant?
So there's kind of like two different dynamics happening in our reviews right now. The first dynamic is for new vendors getting engaged for the first time and really getting strong at reputation management. And Valyn, we've talked about this before. It's challenging to know which of, at least a couple of months ago, it's starting to get better with the new job reports coming out. A couple of months ago, you didn't know which of your clients or users were actually still working at that property and had access to their email. And so that made it really challenging. On the other hand, what we've found is a ton of vendors for the first time getting engaged, like really, truly engaged. And we've had review volumes tick up like crazy. Like we have our annual awards. That's usually when most people kind of like procrastinate till the end of the year and then want to win their award and they get lots of reviews. We have like volumes.
Panic!
But it started to get actually more consistent because one, the hoteliers have more time. Two, the vendors have more time, and usually they're lighter staffed on their marketing teams. So maybe they've had some furloughs or layoffs internally. They've had budget cuts. And so what better way to build your brand than let your customers, you basically crowdsource your marketing to your customers.
I don't believe in that at all. That never works as a business model. Having your customer talk about you is a horrible marketing idea. Sorry.
No, you have to talk about yourself. That's where it's at.
Right.
Lots of pictures of the building, too. Make sure there's always lots of pictures of the building.
Yes.
You know what the problem is, though? I mean, as I see it, as a hotelier, utilizing technology, I have problems that I need solutions for. And I get frustrated because I ask the, customer support or success team or whoever it is, and most of the time they'll tell me, oh, we can't do that. And then I get a huddle with all of the people on my team at all of the hotels, and I tell them my problem, and within a week somebody comes up with some kind of workaround. Yeah. Why can't I get this? And I can't vent publicly to the supplier that I'm using unless I want to cause myself a lot of pain. And all I really want is for companies like Sabre and TravelClick, if I just had a forum where I could say, hey, everybody else using this tool, I'm having this problem. Have you already found a workaround for this? Yeah. That would be, in a way, maybe more helpful to me because I'd be afraid to write a bad review about my current spot.
Yep, so, that's totally fair.
But do you know why that doesn't exist on those big architectures?
I begged Sabre to make a forum for hoteliers, and I know that they didn't do it because they were frightened.
Well, but see, this is exactly it is, especially in the bigger architectures, they are past the life cycle where they're fundamentally interested in changing. They want to be enough of a solution that the mass will give them the money for what they do. They don't have interest in solving depth of problem. They want to solve enough of the general problem that they're considered in the purchase decision. And this is the problem that exists. And it's interesting. I could kind of argue both sides of this. Like, I understand as a hotelier why you would want that, and honestly they should just do it, and it would help them identify high volume problems that are worth money to people. Right. So that upside would be fantastic. However, they also don't want anyone involved in their financing, their whoever funds them, to see that they've created a forum that from first glance appears to be nothing more than people complaining about everything that they have. So I get that side of it. The other side of that, which is an interesting dynamic, is there is, and you're not one of them, but there is a mass mentality amongst hoteliers that if something's cheap enough, it's okay if it doesn't work well. And I'll give you a perfect example of my encounter with that. With Easy Yield, we built a premium architecture that solved lots of problems to a very detailed level. And then you have companies that come out like SiteMinder, who solve none of those problems, just the base problem, but solve it at like $50 a month.
Not naming any names, though, Ed. Not naming any names.
I'm joking.
I'm joking.
Listen, I will gladly call them out because it worked for them. At $50 a month, no complexity. It doesn't do near the amount of stuff as a more advanced channel manager platform, but it's so cheap that hotels are willing to look past it.
Yep, go ahead. Sorry, Ed. Finish.
Yeah, so there's two sides to that dynamic of problem. One is vendors not interested in going too deep, but the other is the consumer, who in this case is the hotel, not interested in paying for really the solutions that they want.
So the other part about this is what I like about Adele's idea is that, customer advisory boards, which used to be, every vendor used to have them. But they're a total pain in the neck, right? Because they're expensive, and you are, in many cases, people on the customer advisory board are picked by the salespeople or the GM or whatever, so they're not really representative of the user base. And so you end up with a sort of a skewed view of how the public actually thinks about your product. And it's not particularly useful. The reviews on Hotel Tech Report. So we are a Nor1 is a user of Hotel Tech Report there, premium, right, Gordon? And so for us, that's my only concern about Hotel Tech Report. And I will say, and Gordon's also aware of this, that we have not made quite the commitment we should to that platform to get the most out of it. But one of my concerns is the types. Are the reviews and the users skewed? Just like if you think about TripAdvisor, right? People always say, "Oh, people only post on TripAdvisor if they have something bad to say, or if they have something great to say." And so, are you also getting a kind of a skew? And this isn't a Hotel Tech Report issue.
Yep.
This is just sort of
something we think about a lot.
Type site where understanding if the reviews are worth it, but anything, honestly, to provide user feedback and having some credibility that the actual feedback is somewhat representative, so that we as a vendor have the opportunity to evaluate it, right, and be able to assume that it's a widespread problem that the fix is going to be worth it.
Yeah, Jordan, one thing I've never understood, and this goes to Bonnie Buchheiser, who I really respect. She called it Xerox training. Software gets introduced to a property, and the people get trained on it. And maybe 40% of what they learn, they retain. And then that person is now the trainer for the next generation of whoever needs to use it to replace them. And 40% gets retained by them. And eventually you get this blurry understanding of a platform that no longer people know what it does in its completeness or anything. And then they start blaming the software and what have you. Reviews go back. This is a piece of junk. This isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing. There's no way to take it back. I don't understand why there isn't a kind of like a constant need to be recertified or retrained in some sort of methodology of these platforms that say that it's always used at its full potential. Plus, I would also make the other complaint, agreeing with Adele, is taking that consistent ownership that when you buy a product, who's the owner of the product and who's the owner on the other side of the product that sold it to them. Are they always talking about it? Because my problems with a lot of clients is that they come out like a racehorse, and then eventually they regulate decisions to people that don't know what they're making decisions on, or they don't even give them the power to make the decision. They're only being reported to, and they have to go through the chain of command. And it bogs down into this, we're not doing as well as we should have been doing before because they've changed the structure of how they were engaged with it. Software people can solve that a lot of times by creating an advocacy, but not based on personal opinion or just objectivity of whether they like it or don't like it, but measuring sticks, like saying, hey, look, you have to get trained. Unless you're trained or certified this year, it doesn't count what you say because you don't know it well enough to be qualified to have an opinion about it. And also, you're not engaged with it enough because we're not talking about it to make sure that you're using it to its full potential. I think that would solve a lot of what we're talking about.
See, but the interesting thing, I think, talking about Hotel Tech Report now, is the review side of it. So we haven't been overly active in pushing people to it. Part of that's been because we just wanted to see if anyone kind of if any of our users end up on there and do anything organically. But what I actually think is great, what Hotel Tech Report has done for hotels, it's just a great place to go if you're looking for stuff and you don't want to engage, right? Because listen, I've been selling into this industry forever, and anyone I've sold to will know I'm not going to push you. If you don't respond to me, I'm not going to hound you because quite honestly, I'm not a priority. I can tell that with you. And so, but I think a lot of hotels are afraid to even go look into something because of how hounded they're going to get, you know, by the sales teams and, you know, things like that. Chris, see ya. So I do like that aspect of what you guys have put together a lot. Your site is fantastic for that, for research. I look at it a lot just to keep kind of tabs on what's out there and, you know, what's new, what's gaining traction. You know, but I don't look at the review aspect of it as anything more than just a way to understand, has anyone spent any time putting reviews about this vendor in it? You know, and I care less about the actual content of the review and just more of, is there anything, you know, has this hit any level of traction?
Yeah, so there's definitely there's a few points. So I think the important thing when we look at this, and it's exactly how we looked at starting our business, is the challenge with hotel tech is that historically, I think a lot of the media, a lot of the industry organizations make it like hotel tech is so different from tech in general. And that's why you've seen some of these challenges that are pretty unique and acute in this space. So to Adele's point, you know, about user forums, you know, what we do, first of all, that's something that's on our roadmap, is creating public user forums where hoteliers can talk and communicate with each other. Why do we come up with that? We look at companies like Intuit and in the, you know, in just the broader software space, MailChimp, they all have user forums and they're super helpful. If any of you guys have used this, you look at Ahrefs, any great software company has a forum where their users can collaborate. And to Valyn's point, it's like, it's the cheapest form of customer research and product marketing that you could do. And so it's a no-brainer. And so if I were still on the hotel software side, I would be creating one. And since I'm on this side, we're going to be creating that. And it's not for the next 6 to 9 months in our roadmap, but we want to create those user forums where hoteliers can connect with each other and get actionable information. As we think about, and kind of getting back to Ed's point about, you know, kind of reviews, is there bias in the reviews? What is the importance of reviews? We think about it as staged. Like, our first challenge was like, how do you start Yelp without a single review about a single restaurant? And that's really effing hard.
Right.
And so we had to solve for that problem. And then the next problem, so we look at it kind of like a canal where we're like opening up and moving closer to our end destination. And so the next problem is, okay, well, all these companies that are getting reviews, they're actively getting them. As you know, as anyone who's on the software side, like Ed and Valyn know, it's not like a restaurant where you have a great chicken parm at the like classic Italian restaurant down the street and you want to leave a review. Like, you're using software. It's not like a natural thing to go online and write a review. And so this needs to be embedded within the behavior of software culture. And that's already happened in broader tech. And it's our job, you know, to Valyn's point about not being super active on the review front. That's not Valyn's issue. It's not Ed's issue. That's our issue. Like, our job is to make it so that every single company knows the importance of bringing out that reputation and just getting in front of their users and bringing that feedback into the open. And to Ed's point about some of these companies that have gotten to a stage where they don't want to change, ultimately, like, you know, we say that our mission is to make companies with, am I allowed to curse on the show, Lauren?
Yeah.
Okay, so companies with shitty products and shitty service, we want to help them find that out quickly and make it better and then shout it from the rooftop. And a company with great products and services, we want to help them shout it from the rooftop to get as many customers as possible. And ultimately what that does is move the ecosystem towards more customer centricity, more learning about the pain points and really solving them. And so we've definitely seen a lot of progress in that space. So the way that our reviews work, I think Ben had brought it up before, maybe it was Tristan before he hopped off. We verify every review via LinkedIn, or we have a process that's completely outlined in our help center that I can send after the show. But basically, we make sure that they're a hotelier, the vendor gets a notification. The vendor can then flag that. If the vendor says this maybe is a competitor, or this looks like someone who's just trying to tarnish their reputation, they can then flag that. So we use a Waze type of community system to make sure that all those reviews are valid. And also the reviews have to come from a hotel domain. So, Ed, I'm sure that like if you asked a hotelier who wasn't a Flip2 customer to review you guys, it would be a pretty weird thing to do. like to ask someone who's not a user of your product to review your product. But if you ask them to review a competitor in the space, that would also be kind of a strange dynamic, but then that competitor can flag it as not a legitimate review. So we have quite a few checks and balances and kind of user-generated systems to help that. And what we're really getting into is the first set of reviews are all gathered by vendors, so it starts being really positive. And what happens is, as you get further and further down, we have what we call our review average threshold. So within every category, we say, look, the most important thing isn't being the biggest company in the space, but a hotelier realistically, like what we try to do is productize the best hoteliers' decision-making processes. So they don't want to work with a startup like us back in the day who launched, have 2 people on staff, and may not be around next year. They want some level of security. And so the way that we productize that into the platform is you say within a category, what are the average number of reviews? And if you hit that as a vendor, you're able to potentially take a top spot based on the other ranking factors, similar to the way that Google calculates ranking factors. And so what that does is, as the first company gets in the space, let's say, we had a company in parking management, which is a relatively weak category on our site. It doesn't get a ton of traffic yet, as hoteliers aren't thinking about this kind of software. The first company to get into that space, it's super easy to be number one. They kick ass. They're selling like crazy against their competition, saying we're number one on Hotel Tech Report. And then the competition gets in and things start to elevate. And what happens is the reviews start out as biased, and it's like a review war for like who has the most 5-star reviews. And over time it calibrates, and you'll see this in our PMS section, revenue management, booking engine, channel manager, the core software that hotels use. It's actually starting to get a level of statistical significance, and we're still far from it. But it's actually getting normalized, and you're seeing much more balanced reviews in those categories. And we expect that to happen across the board, but it takes a really long time to get there.
One thing you might, sorry, one moment, Lily. One thing you might want to consider is that there are at least 2 levels, maybe more in a hotel, of who is using the software. There's the decision maker who at a high level, anytime you ask them, oh yeah, we love him. Me and my friend so-and-so, we go out to drinks once a month. And we,
just say Ed. Just say Ed.
And then you go down to the level of the people who are actually implementing it and trying to put things in, and they have pain. And usually, that's very frustrating to me, the difference between here and here. In my little company, in the library hotel collection, it's little enough, it's flat enough that we all are feeling the same pain at the same time. But I don't trust only high level review.
And that goes to my question, which is who do you write for, Jordan? So who do you design the site for? What's the profile of what's the profile you want, and what's the profile you get as far as users to the site?
Yep, totally. So we actually have all this in our media kit that I could get you exact numbers.
No, I want you to talk about it.
Yeah. So who do we write for? Who's our website built for? I'm going to actually just take from where Adele left off. The buying process is extremely complex in this space. So and then when you talk about the whole customer journey, so the person who makes the decision is very different than the people using the software. And so basically what we have to do is we have to create a site that is targeted for the end users, because this is information the decision maker can use based on how end users are feeling about the product. And so most of our reviews are actually those people on the ground that Adele's describing who are engaging with it on a daily basis. And if we find that a kind of a senior exec writes kind of a shallow review about the beers they get with the sales rep, like we reject that content as low quality. Like all of the content on our site is actionable, content that's about using that software and the specific pain points or specific solutions or benefits of that software. And so when we think about our site, the majority of our traffic is those end users. So because there's so many different people in that decision-making process, the 2 biggest kind of constituents in our user base are owners of small independent properties, small medium-sized independent properties, and this is based on volume of traffic to our site. The next is GMs, as you would suspect, and then there's kind of an even split between marketers, sales, and revenue, just because those are pretty mature categories for us. And then when you look at the actual like who's on our site, there's just by kind of sheer law of physics, there's fewer CIOs of Montage and Four Seasons, et cetera. And so they're not going to be a huge number on our site, but they're definitely active on our site. Like, we wrote an article about a software company CEO. This is like 2 years ago. Like we had maybe a tenth the traffic of what we have today, and just kind of showing of the early on progress is like literally it was the next morning the CIO of Four Seasons called them and said someone in their office sent them the article about this product, and he wanted to talk about the founder's professional poker career and just have a beer. And so like that's like the level, like the level really ranges the gamut. But as you can imagine, there's just far more front office managers, general managers, owners of small, medium-sized properties that are just the bulk of the traffic on our website, and that's who we gear our content for. But we definitely, I write a good amount of our content that's really not geared towards that segment, and so when I write, it's really geared towards CIOs or the CEOs of the technology companies really trying to advocate for change. We get involved when we think there are really important issues that we create that elevated content that's not necessarily on the ground actionable advice for those kind of on property staff.
So Jordan, a couple of questions for you real quick. On the Hotel Tech report, I assume that if it doesn't have the Hotel Tech score badge, that just means the volume of reviews is not high enough for you to issue that. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. And also kind of on that page, do you have any plans to put in the number of reviews? Because when I'm looking, to Lauren's point, I may not read every review, but I might if there are only 3. Because to me, that's not critical volume. So Is there a way to say like, okay, this one was rated 4.5 stars and has 138 reviews. This one was rated 4.5 stars and has 2 reviews, because I'm more likely to trust a high aggregate.
Totally. So the review volumes are baked into the Hotel Tech score. And similar to how you have like domain authority on Google, like you go to Google and it doesn't tell you the number of backlinks that a page has or the number of keywords in that page. So we're constantly updating the way that we rank these vendors. And so we think reviews are important, but we think there are a lot of other factors that are really important too. I'll just allude to one of them is Lauren mentioned the kind of solution of, okay, well, you have a buyer of a product who then it kind of gets diluted. I think you called it the Xerox training effect, who like there's the next person, it's like a phone game. And so what we found major tech companies to do to solve this problem is they have really great customer service. So they have user conferences to bring their users together in those kind of focus groups. They have online training centers. They have really fast turnaround on support tickets. They have consistency of customer support reps on their QBRs, so that you're constantly talking to the same person who knows your business. So we created our own customer support certification where vendors can apply, and we audit all of their support operations to ensure that, again, it's not perfect, but basically we can vet and say the users of SiteMinder, for example, are more likely to deeply understand their product than the users of product XYZ, because they have all of these processes in place. And we literally go into the company's customer support, whether it's Intercom or Drift or whoever they're using for their support tickets. We go into their systems, we look at their support turnaround times, we look at their NPS scores, and that's how we certify them. And so the reason I bring this up, Lily, is because that has nothing to do with reviews. Like that's something that we're doing that's taking on that extra work. And over time, we'll do more and more things like that, where we say, okay, a buyer really wants to understand, once they sign this contract, are they going to get the thing that they're promised? And reviews can be a great indicator of that in a crowdsourced way. But there's another level of care, another level of kind of customer focused white glove service that we need to do that has nothing to do with reviews. There's another variable that we have that's around global distribution. So we have a really global audience. So if we have a CRM based in Paris who doesn't serve any other country outside of France, and we recommend that vendor, that is a real challenge for our users who then can try to connect with that vendor who doesn't service them. So we're adding geographic factors in there. And that's something that I hope will break down over time. Like there's no other industry that I've seen that has regional software companies. This is like a global business, and that's the beauty of software. And so we're constantly working on things like that. We have integrations are now factored into in a similar way, integrations are factored into our hotel tech score. Again, this is not something about reviews. The way that we do integrations is we say, in a category, what are the average number of integrations? And does this vendor meet that? And if they don't, it probably means they don't have an open API, they haven't invested. So if you go to sell, Nora One and you don't have the right PMS to integrate with, that's a really bad experience for our end users. And so we're constantly getting better, and we think that there's a lot of data points we can get that supplement the reviews, or complement the reviews rather, so that we try and make it a more holistic ranking than just the reviews themselves.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because you've got your HT score, and so that can kind of include everything. I think as an end user, though, I would still want to know what is the average review score and how many reviews are making up that average. Because just the way, I use this on Amazon and Google, whatever the case may be, because as a revenue manager, of course, I know that a larger data set is more likely to give me a true midpoint than another. And the HT score requires me to trust you specifically, that you have considered all of the right factors. So I like to look at both.
Totally. So there's two points to that. So first of all, in every single profile, you will see a summary of all the data that goes into the user feedback. It's the first thing that you see on every single profile. And the second piece is if you roll over the hotel tech score, it's going to take you to an article of exactly how that hotel tech score is calculated. So like Google, for many reasons, doesn't tell you exactly how their search algorithm works. They give us like clues and try to make us guess. Most marketplaces and platforms will do that. There's a lot of reasons why, because they don't want constituents gaming the system. There's a lot of different variables. They don't want people complaining. We've had people complain, we don't like this variable because it doesn't serve our company. So most companies in our space and in our domain will not reveal that score. G2 is the biggest player in our space. They won't tell you how that score is calculated. We do it because we believe it's important to our constituents, and because we're in such a niche space. We talk with people like Valyn and Ed every single day, and Adele, and we ask all sides, what are we doing wrong? What can we do better? What variables can we put in here that makes our recommendations better for you guys? And we kind of act as the mediator between the two sides, because vendors obviously want something different than hoteliers, and we're constantly updating that. So long story short is we think that reviews are a piece of the puzzle, but not the whole puzzle. And we do display all review data right on those profiles. So if you hop in right now, you'll see it for pretty much any vendor that you go, or any vendor that you go to.
I was also curious.
My door.
No worries. I was also curious, Jordan. I see that you have sort of a quiz. So let's say we're looking for a new booking engine or something, and we take the quiz. Are you collecting any feedback, either that you plan to display or that you're just using for internal improvements about, hey, I took your quiz, I selected the product that was recommended, or one of the top 3, or however that works. And I was X level satisfied with the end result. Yeah.
So we do have plans to implement like just direct feedback on that piece of the puzzle. We have done, actually back in December, we did a really comprehensive user research study that asked all those questions. Also asked satisfaction on our site, what can we do better? And actually like the next 3 to 6 months here is really focused on conversion rate optimization on our site. And when people say that, it sounds very like mechanical and commercial, but ultimately what conversion rate optimization is doing is it helps. And so first of all, it's really understanding your end user, delivering the exact need or pain point that they have, and then showing them exactly how you do that. And so a lot of people think it's like super complex, or like, these A/B testing, but ultimately if a user says, I don't like the way that there's an advertisement on this page, it decreases my trust in the recommendations. By removing that advertisement, it ultimately can increase the conversion. It creates a better user experience. So we absolutely have done a lot of that. The main pain points that we get when we do that research, it's less about actually the recommendation, like how did that recommendation do for you? Because the sales cycle, as you guys all know in this space, is super long. So it's hard to get that instant feedback on something. But we asked for feedback on ourselves. And the main negative feedback that we will get is just based on, I think it was Lauren who said, talked about the gaming TripAdvisor, or maybe it's actually been gaming TripAdvisor and how easy that is. Most of our users are the ones who are a little bit skeptical of that segment. Their biggest pain point is we are skeptical of review sites because of these practices. And so the big focus for us is showing them exactly how that happens. So Lily, to your point about the quiz, the way the quiz works is actually, and this is what we try to tell vendors, like being ranked number one in your space is great, but most of the leads that come through our platform are through the quiz. And what the quiz does is you'll put in your criteria and we'll match you with the vendors who have the best reviews for that criteria. And so it's not necessarily the number one vendor because that's not the most relevant for that hotelier. If you go on the quiz and you say that you're a 37-room bed and breakfast in Milan, who's an independent, you're going to get very different recommendations for a digital marketing agency than a 100-room hotel in Tampa who's Marriott Courtyard. So those recommendations are very different. It's all based on the reviews, but no, we need to do more work in getting that feedback. It's really just about prioritization within our roadmap. And our hypothesis to date is that asking for that kind of feedback right now, we wouldn't get a significant enough response. Like maybe we could ask 3 months later, but like we all know how customer surveys go, especially when we're not the provider, we're not Flip2, right? Like we're a marketplace, an intermediary, a kind of channel for these people. And so if we come back to them in 3 months and say, hey, how was SiteMinder? That's something we can do, but we don't think, our hypothesis is we won't get a huge uptick in terms of responses, enough that we'll be able to make actionable decisions for our website on it. And so we continue to focus on just asking hoteliers how they're making decisions and implementing that feedback. And we hope that is getting better over time.
Right. And talking to that, I mean, you look at the largest reviews on your site. These are companies that have thousands of installs in the industry.
Right.
And they only have a couple hundred reviews. Well, part of the reason that you're seeing that is the industry as itself tends to quietly shun bad actors. They don't tell people that vendors are bad actors. That's one of the challenges in this industry, is even when you're having a conversation with someone who obviously is very aware of a vendor's experience, they won't talk about it. And part of that's the hospitality nature of the people who work here, is you don't want to talk ill of other people. I think that is
that it's a small industry where people have long memories that have been around for a long time. So you never know who might be your boss, 6 years from now.
I'll just hop in super quick. To that point, and actually, Adele, I should have addressed this to your point earlier. Most review sites in our space, so actually it's much better to build trust with end users for us. So it's better for our business to show the identity of hoteliers on the front end, because our community who comes to us who doesn't know us will be less skeptical, who doesn't know our review processes and verifications. So, but unlike most companies in our kind of category, I'd say not in our space or industry, we don't show the identity. So everything's anonymous. So first of all, you can't go poach competitors. So like, Valyn's competitors can't go on her reviews and say, oh, I'm going to go hit all those guys and find one that doesn't have a good review. So because it's a closed, very small ecosystem, we want to encourage the best behavior amongst vendors. And on the other side, when you're writing a review, Adele, you can click make it anonymous, and the vendor cannot see your identity, so you can keep that private. So we did that to help with that exact dynamic, to keep your privacy. And the vendor can then say, they can flag it and say, this doesn't look legitimate, they left a bad review. We're not going to reveal your identity to the vendor. What we do is we send an automated notification to you. It says, please send us your last invoice from this vendor to prove that you're a customer. And we keep all that in a centralized database, but the vendor never sees your identity. And if you don't respond to us within 48 hours, we're going to take your review down. So that protects the vendors as well. So we try and make sure that every side feels safe. And, to Ed's point about the review volume, like in vertical markets, it's just not like Dropbox or MailChimp. You don't get 10,000 reviews for products. You have much smaller user bases. It's much harder to reach them. And quite frankly, no company in the space had any reviews. Right. Only the kind of super SME, kind of PMS, Cloudbeds, Hotelogics, those guys on Capterra, that really their business models look more like regular SaaS versus kind of hotel tech. Those were the only companies that had ever gotten reviews before us. And so we're educating them. We're trying to make everyone feel comfortable with it and show them that it's in everyone's best interest. It's going to speed up the sales cycle, build trust between buyers and sellers, help vendors improve their products over time, help the hoteliers get responses when they're not getting it to customer support. Come to us. We're your advocate. We're your Better Business Bureau, and do it in a positive way. Don't do it just to like tear down the vendor. Do it so that you get the thing that you want. And then we have processes so that vendor can come back to you and say, hey, do we address that concern? Do we make things better? Do we make it right for you? And so we have built all these things that are very unique to our industry that no other review website has to really encourage innovation and moving in this direction. And we see a world where every single vendor, like this is part of their business process. They sign a client, within 90 days of that client, they get an NPS, in 6 months they get reviews, they update those reviews every year. And that's just part of business. And we're still a ways to get there, but it's getting closer.
Yeah.
You know, every vendor I've ever spoken to, when people complain, they always say, Adele, nobody's ever told us that before. And I don't think for a moment. So it'll be nice to see that happening.
Yeah.
This might be a naive question only because I'm in the video space so much these days, but what about, right now you mentioned earlier on in the first start of the conversation that videos was going to be a bit of a challenge for you because of the logistics associated with developing them and so forth. But as you say, at these current times, the opportunity presents itself. We have now a higher tolerance of the variations of videos that we are willing to watch. As we make the example of I do, we watch nighttime TV shows on phones in somebody's living room now.
People watch this show.
So this show. Well, that's been 6 years in the making. So I don't want to point back too far and call it kind of black.
Nobody watches this show. Come now.
But the idea of it is that video is now a new engagement process that is a little bit broader in the spectrum for this. Is there any thought to that, or even like there's platforms now where people can do video testimonials? There's verified purchasing. I mean. Yep. Some validations or personalization of the messaging in some ways, whether it's either explanations of the software, validation of the software, or questions about the software. Whatever it is, video could be an interesting medium given the current circumstances. I'm trying to understand the logistic concern, I guess. Yeah,
we've explored it a bit. I think that, you need to have a diverse media mix for any company like ours. It's just kind of blocking and tackling and making sure that you prioritize where you go. And we think that video, so our hypothesis internally, and I think we'll probably all agree on this one, is that people watch video for two reasons. Either one, they want to be entertained, or number two, they want to get actionable insights that they can use right now. So there's a ton of, we're writing an article on how to, for front desk agents and IT staff on how to connect guest Xbox to the Wi-Fi. So like people will search for that video like that. And so basically, we found that if you're doing software explanations, the video is not honestly super entertaining. So if it's not going to be entertaining, we have to make it really practical. I mean, we've all seen the vendor kind of, this is Joe. Joe runs a hotel. Like nobody really wants to watch that stuff. And I don't know why people make it. But I guess it's people think they have to do it. So when we go into video, first of all, we want to make it entertaining. We want to make it funny, which takes a lot of care. And then we also want to make it really actionable. And so that means that in order to produce a video on a vendor, we're going to need demo accounts. We're going to need to try that software ourselves. Whoever's making that video, producing the content, and so it's quite a bit of an investment. And so we just need to make sure that it aligns with our commercial model, it makes sense for our business, and ultimately that we're meeting our goal of serving those end users.
Yeah, because let's face it, video is easy. Good video is nearly impossible.
Right.
Yeah.
as this show proves on a weekly basis.
On a weekly basis.
Video is easy. We put out hours of content.
Anybody with two computers can make video.
So, Lily, one thing I would say when you're looking at what Jordan does is, and what I think they've done well, is they're really good at showing different forms of measurement of a vendor. So it's not just review. Review is there and present, but they are using their HT score. They're using other metrics that they've created that are based on other signals on whether or not this is a good vendor. So he mentioned one of the things is integrations. We all know in this industry, integrations are core necessity. And, a vendor's willingness to integrate usually is pretty well aligned to how good their operation is at any point in time. You can tell when a vendor is trying to dig out of technical debt because they make almost zero movement in integrations. Yeah. And so, I understand we want to compare, Jordan to a TripAdvisor. Where he is substantially different is he is providing other metrics of measurement of the quality of the vendor. Because again, I mean, there's so small of a test sampling in the buyers of these different products, and there's so many products. Like if you look at channel management alone, there's hundreds of channel management companies. That means each one of them has a super small set of buyers because they're only getting purchased by buyers who are qualified for channel management and need it for their business. Well, that doesn't include most brands. So now you're talking, it's an even smaller subset, to where statistical relevance just on reviews in this industry would completely kill any validity of this model. However, the other measurement points that they create, one of the big things I like about what they do is they do their own digging on any of these vendors and actually create a slightly different voice on what each vendor's value proposition is versus what the vendor would just submit to them. And I think that's, quite interesting. And this is one of those things the industry needs to be interested in having something like this become part of their decision path, which is a huge hurdle because even though he's trying to bring something that everyone understands to the industry, he's trying to bring something completely new to our industry, which is very hard and takes a long time. And adoption in this industry is really hard to get. Until it's everyone says you have to go here, and then it has that snowball effect. But it takes years to get there in this.
Yeah, and Ed, you even touched on a point earlier. And sorry guys, I got to hop in like a few here. You made a point earlier about kind of like how hard it is to sell in new products, and that's one of the reasons why we started. That's one of the huge Our job is to drive innovation forward, and we have to do all these things to get there that are like blocking and tackling. Introducing new products is something that we want to do. We're not very good at it today. We're still getting there. And our first job is doing exactly what you just said, Ed. It's like creating an industry standard, which everybody goes to and knows. And we're getting really close to checking that first box. Once we get there, that's what my dad likes to call eating our vegetables. Once we get there, it gives us the right to play in a lot of other spaces. So that can go into what Lauren was talking about training, like basically implementation and training after the fact. It also gives us the right to introduce new products. So we're launching a section of our site soon that's basically like a deals and promotions. So if you're launching a new product that doesn't fit neatly within a category, we can drive you a ton of demand with our users to do free trials, et cetera, so that you can get that initial install base if you can't get the review volumes. And so that's definitely an aspect of where we're going and creating a lot more of our own independent content, which we've done a bit of in the past, and we're doing more and more moving forward.
Jordan, I know that the beginning part you said, hey, I got a half hour.
Yeah, I gotta hop him a little bit late for my call, but this is awesome, guys. Lauren, we're gonna do it again, right?
We're going to do it again. And just to be fair, because Adam wasn't able to go over and defend himself, we know that Adam does most of this heavy lifting. You're just talking about what Adam does, and we understand
Exactly. This is the tail of Adam. We're laughing, but I'm not kidding.
Jordan, if they want to know more about Hotel Tech Report and to be able to reach out to you or anything like that, where is it they can find you? And
honestly, the best place is live chat on our site. We have it for hoteliers. We have it for technology companies. We're around 24/7 to ask questions. I sleep 12. I sleep in the night. Adam sleeps in the day. We're good to go.
Jordan, thanks for giving us more than a half hour. You gave us an hour and then some, so appreciate it very much. Say Adam, of course, and then
have a great weekend, guys.
And get you back.
Thanks, Jordan.
Bye.
Thanks, Jordan.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, Adam was sending emails over. It's like, yeah, you didn't get the brains to the organization, but hey, and it's like, no. Do together, but I guess everybody thought that Jordan was a guru on everything because we're getting Colin from Costa Rica wanted to ask him on how to replace Google's retargeting? And I didn't think that was an applicable question to ask Jordan at the time, but I guess obviously thought Jordan knew
it's always fun to put people on the spot. So I appreciate the question for sure.
I was surprised you get to stay with us the whole hour because we had this breakdown in emails. I was sending him an email every day going, hey, this is your LinkedIn. I wasn't getting anything back. I wasn't even showing it being open. So finally, I reached out on LinkedIn going, hey, Jordan, it doesn't look like any of my emails are going through. He says, I'm not getting any emails. I said, well, you're still making it tomorrow? He says, no, I didn't hear from you. I thought and I'm like, oh, geez, And then he goes over and opens his emails. And he's like, oh, crap, there they are.
Well, clearly he fits right into this show because I think we've all agreed that it's not important to stop being on the show for paying customers, right? That's pretty much.
Yeah, first rule of Fight Club.
And we all have the spam filter for Lauren's emails, so they
because let's face it, every single one of Lauren's emails are TLDR.
Almost all of Lauren's emails go into my spam filter. Every Thursday, if I say I haven't seen anything from Lauren, I go check the spam.
There it is.
This folder in hospitality digital marketing.
So talking about what they're trying to do at Hotel Tech Report, you have to appreciate how stinking hard it is because first of all, they need content, and sometimes some of the problem is some of the biggest content creators in the vendor space are usually the ones that aren't great vendors, and so they have to build trust. They have to figure out this balance of getting quality content, but not having that skewed too much to a vendor that if that vendor ends up getting a bad reputation, that bad reputation sticks to Hotel Tech Report because they push the vendor. They're in probably one of the most difficult eggshell dances possible.
They are so smart though, because we were first movers in the upsell category for years, right? We didn't have any competition. And nor ones where we've got a little fat and happy from the marketing side and, sort of just sat there for a while. And then all of a sudden we had competition coming out of the woodwork because it's really low barrier to entry for unconfirmed upsells during pre-arrival, right? No integration except a res data feed from the booking engine or something. So we went from not having much in the way of competition to having a bunch. And we got onto HTR only because all the small guys got there. Right, because all the small guys said,
they pulled you in.
Well, it was because we would become at a competitive disadvantage if we weren't there. Because all the startups went there because that's a smart thing to do, right? Startups go wherever they can get the most distribution bang for their buck. They pulled us in because we got to the point where we just didn't have a choice.
Yeah,
and that's so they are close to their critical mass. Now we're upselling as a small category. But he's right. All the big boys are there as well at this point. So I think as a vendor who's really we don't have a choice. It's kind of like a hotel and TripAdvisor, right? Fine. But the value proposition to us, if we manage it correctly, is enough.
Well, and I'm sure, Adele can speak to this. I'm sure Lily can speak to this. But speaking for my clients, it's nice to see the shoe on the other foot for vendors. Right? We're all living with how you get reviewed all day, every day. So it's
And it makes competition makes the pie bigger for everyone in a way, and definitely it puts us on our toes and it makes us deliver the best results. And remember in the days before reviews when you would walk a honeymoon couple and that was just a private thing between you and that guest. Right. Well, hello. Now it's public.
Right.
There's a joke I've made for years that, for the first 10 years of my career, how many clients spoke to me, how many people I talked to said, boy, if only we could know what our customers think. And reviews are one of the great, be careful what you wish for in the history of mankind, right?
Well, and it's an interesting thing. Well, right? It's an interesting thing that I looked at with Jordan and Adam was, when they were starting out, I was like, all right, we'll reach out to a couple of our clients, ask them to put in, some reviews and do that. But I'm not going to lie. In the back of my head, I was like, I'm not going to my entire customer base with this because I don't want to create a TripAdvisor. Because, hotels put TripAdvisor into power. And we've seen how bad that got when TripAdvisor stopped caring about their primary mission. Yeah. Well, no, I don't even mind that they stopped caring about hotels. That time period where that time period where they only cared about travelers, I thought was quite interesting for them. And that's when I thought they were going to conquer the world.
Yeah, right.
Unfortunately, they quickly stopped caring about travelers as well. And now they only care about investors and Wall Street and share prices. And so now they serve no one.
Yeah, how's that working out for them again?
Yeah, it's not working out well.
I have the same concern about HTR. I mean, we're in it. I won't say reluctantly, but we were pulled into it, and there is. I mean, not everybody inside Nor1 is convinced that it's the right place for us to be. But
listen, I don't mind if you're pulled into it. Like if you get pulled into it, that means there's a marketplace, and you're not the one who propped it up.
That's right. That's correct.
So we've been supporters of theirs, but supporters of theirs kind of eating the vegetables that I've told the hotel industry since I was 19 years old on how crazy some of these hotels were by actively feeding every guest to TripAdvisor. Right. And I'll tell you what, there have been many a times where I've had hotels come back to me and say, you were wrong about this. And then I show them, I'll go leave a review for their hotel. And then I forward them the email TripAdvisor sends me 30 days later, marketing that market. And the hotel's not in it.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So if you're sending, it's a fine line. You need to use TripAdvisor correctly. And of course, the day's gone. Like you have to use TripAdvisor.
Right.
But back in 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, it was foolish to be sending all of your guests to TripAdvisor. Sure. You were creating their scenario. You were enabling their power.
You're providing free content to them.
Right.
You were also foolish to give a lot of. You were also foolish to give a lot of inventory to Expedia and folks along those lines. But
and you heard me scream about that as well.
It was reckless days those days.
Likewise,
Yeah.
You know what, Ed? You know how many emails went out to the world about the little Casablanca Hotel in Times Square with 45 rooms that was something that we would never pay for advertising. And just for smiling at people and doing the right thing and making them happy, like phenomenal visibility. Even, I think, literally could have hundreds of thousands of viewers on our page in just 1 month.
Oh, and don't get me wrong.
To fill a 45-room hotel.
There's a lot of really good upside to TripAdvisor.
Yeah.
And most of my angst about how the industry dealt with TripAdvisor is the early days where they were silly to, there was a point in time, and I don't know if TripAdvisor still does it, where TripAdvisor basically set it up where, you don't have a survey system? Great, you can use ours. Just feed all your guests to us. Right. You're literally giving your guest relationship to TripAdvisor.
It goes for Facebook and Facebook pages back in the day where it's silly to say, let's build an audience on our Facebook page. And
as an industry, this industry has always been addicted to customer acquisition. And part of the reason for that is because this industry is really poor at keeping its relationships with the customers it acquires. That addiction to customer acquisition is why most of the big models that squeeze the profitability of this industry exist. So, using TripAdvisor the way you use TripAdvisor, brilliant. Using TripAdvisor the way normal hotels historically use TripAdvisor is ill-conceived and problematic.
Well, Ed, first of all, I agree with both you and Adele. There's a key difference here, right? Most of the room inventory in this country is not differentiated, right? The Casablanca Hotel, the Library Hotel, you have great story to tell, right? Mm-hmm. When you are, Uncle Arnie's box of rooms in, right on West 24th Street, that looks exactly like every other's box of rooms. You don't have a good story to tell, so you have to be addicted to acquisition because there's not a lot that differentiates you or provides this great opportunity.
But this is where even I don't think Adele.
But that's where something like service and the like can be the differentiator, but then you have to have the reviews for people to understand why I'm picking box rooms A versus box rooms B.
And this is where I create the caveat of what Adele's done with TripAdvisor versus what most hotels do with TripAdvisor. Adele aligned her operations to drive exceptional experiences as the way. So I think Adele would have accomplished this without it being library. I think Adele could have accomplished this with it being Roy's box of rooms, because the box of rooms is one dimension of why you stay there.
That's exactly right.
And how they treat you and all of that is another dimension. And Adele's process that she's always done has been about making sure that all interactions have a focus in mind of, you know, how the guest is going to feel, and will the guest feel compelled to speak about you.
Yeah, you know, a few years ago, I took 2 weeks because there were so many new hotels in New York, and I said, I'm going to look at least 15 new hotels in these 2 weeks. And with the exception of the Crosby Street Hotel, which is very unusual and very creative and exceptional, every single room was identical. Identical. I could not tell the difference between a $200 room and a $500 room. They were all the same.
Right.
But the service of the Staybridge Suites, they call it Times Square, but I wouldn't call it Times Square. It's a little off Times Square. I mean, the guy met my eyes when I was 10 feet away walking up to the hotel, and, oh, is she looking over here? Is she going to open the door? Hey, how are you? Can I do anything for you? Oh, would you like to see the hotel? Wonderful. And I will never forget how he showed me that hotel. Like, he just loves working here, and he just loves to share with me all the wonderful things about that hotel. And the fact that they had so much energy, I mean, that was amazing. I could never forget that.
You mean he worked in the hospitality industry?
It's interesting. You know what brand does that well, which has always surprised me and has made me weirdly loyal to it, is Hampton Inn.
Totally.
Hampton Inn's front desk persona that they've created, I always have felt like is the epitome of hospitality, because they're always chatty. They and it's not the awkward chat, right? Like, and it's interesting. It's one of the things that turns me away from a lot of super high end luxury hotels is I actually feel like they force too much interaction to remind you of why you're paying. Where I'm not one of those people. Like, if you naturally engage me, yes, I'll talk with you all day. If I feel like you're going through a checklist of, you know, we have to do this because this is part of the sell. But I feel like Hampton Inn consistently has that person at the front desk who kind of feels like they're the only person working there, but yet somehow still has time to engage you, which makes it feel even more impressive. And they know how to talk. They know how to, like, quickly pick up on what you're interested in and have engagement with you. I don't know how they've done that, but I have had that experience across at least 40 or 50 Hampton Inns, which is interesting in itself because I'm generally not loyal to hotels. You know, I like to try different hotels, but I've stayed at like 50 Hampton Inns that I can remember, you know, and it's a lot of it's because of that strange thing they've figured out with their front desk people.
You know, it's funny is that, and then I've actually thought of Adele when I was doing this these past couple of weeks. I have a client that has a lot of mid-scale branded hotels, and one of the things I've asked them to do, when I've mentioned it on the show, is do these videos about explaining the change in protocol of the hotels, what it's like to walk into the lobby, what's it like to see what's in the room differently, and so forth and so on. And it is a full spectrum of, I got to do this because I was told, to we're going to make this fun as heck. And it's and you know the standouts are the ones where, you know, the GM is in the lobby and she's a young girl. You see, this is her first GM gig thing. You just, you know, and one of her staffers walks in the door and she's like, "Stop! Put your mask on." You know, they're doing this all this, and they're making it really enjoyable and entertaining to watch this little 1.5-minute video that we put together. And then I have another video that has a very authoritative GM that's like, "When you walk into our lobby, you stand here. Don't go there. do this here. It's all over the board. But at first the ownership was like, do we really want to do this? It's like, look, each hotel has its own voice. And this is the chance for you to be your own voice.
Right.
Other people, they're going to look at other people's videos and say, oh, I like theirs better than what we did. And we'll do the next one. And the next one's going to be something about something else, But the idea is, to Adele's point, there was some of these videos that were just like, that was just fun to watch. That was just, they had a blast where it's like, put your mask on, don't do, and they're doing all these fun things. And then there's other ones where like, and here's a sign you can't read in the video, but there's a sign here.
Well, it's the difference. It's the difference between the spirit of hospitality versus the letter of, the guidelines, right? The script. It's understanding what is the intent of the guest, what's the guest purpose, and how are you helping them fulfill that. And I think Adele's properties do that very well. I think I'm with you, Ed. I took my child. We drove cross country to get them to school a couple years ago from New Jersey to Arizona. And we ended up mostly in Hampton Inns because they did a really nice job. And they're doing something very well. They're doing something very good right now. They're doing it well. By the way, I apologize. I've got to drop because I have a 1 o'clock and I need a little bit of time to prep and powder my nose and all those fun things. So lovely to see you all.
Thank you.
I gotta get a little. I gotta comb my hair. So.
Always good to see you, sir.
Exactly.
And if you want to know more about you, where they find you, Tim?
TimPeter.com and TCPeter on Twitter. Otherwise, Tim Peter almost everywhere else on social. All right.
Thanks, Tim. Have a great weekend. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to all who celebrate. Happy Juneteenth. And
yes,
you all stay well.
Happy
Right.
Juneteenth.
We will see you soon. Bye now.
So I want to go ahead and take us off track because I need to.
How can you
dampen my
take us off track
reputation
from
a bit.
being off track?
Off track if you put us on. Okay.
Are you putting us on track then?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think this ties into any of the articles, but Hampton Inn came up a couple times, and I actually had a conversation earlier this week with a hotel owner who owns several Hampton Inns, and his comment was that he feels that True is poaching customers from the Hampton Inn brand when they're in the same market. I just wondered anecdotally if you guys had heard anything from your constituents about that. He asked if I had, and I said, right now we just honestly don't have a Hampton Inn and a True in the same market for me to be able to measure. So curious what you guys think of that.
Again, I don't have the data on True versus Hampton Inn, but I can use, a Loft with Starwood. When that really started hitting, a Loft was just a more interesting brand than. And actually, if we want to get out of hotels completely, do you remember StOnge by Delta?
Yeah.
I actually thought StOnge was a better airline than Delta, and it was cheaper. So I think sometimes what happens when a brand creates a new brand, a new sub-brand, first of all, anytime a brand creates a new sub-brand, its purpose is so they can put more hotels in your market, which inevitably dilutes how much you're getting from the brand. So the answer initially is yes, by nature, the fact that it's a new brand under the same, kind of family, it is diluting a bit. However, the problem I think that exists when like an Aloft or a True comes out is it's more modern thought process. Construction is thought, in these from the ground up, that they're cheaper to build, but they look nicer. Like I like Aloft. Aloft is one of my favorite brands that came out of Starwood, and I would stay at an Aloft versus a Sheraton any day. But Aloft was meant to be a much lower price point and everything like that. So I think that does just happen naturally. It's the progression of, they brought in different designers, they brought in, material experts, because cheap chic has become something the brands have been obsessed with in all their new brands, which is that Target approach to it feels designer, but it doesn't cost designer. Right.
So our offices are in Santa Clara, California, and there's an Aloft there. I'll ever go back at this point, but the originally, so I stay in a lot of Alofts. Some of them say Aloft by W, right? So is that sub-brand marketing that you were talking about? And I don't really understand the whole sub-brand marketing, because the Aloft and the W, two totally different products. And so I just thought, why is that? Like, it didn't influence me. It confused me, which I think is a problem with brand proliferation.
Yeah.
I think for me, like, I look at it as, for example, if it said True by Hampton, I would expect True to be a scaled down version with some of the elements of a Hampton that I like. When it's True by Hilton, it leaves me vague on where it falls in there. I assume people started doing that, or brands started doing that, because Starwood is the only one that didn't do it, and they had the biggest problem with, wait, what brands belong to Starwood? We're not sure. So right. I think it's intended to add clarity, but to me, I also see it as, if it's a sub of, like you said, Aloft by W, Aloft, then I expect it to be trendy, which it is. I expect it to be, a little bit more edgy, which it is, but not the same level of service or amenities as W, which it is. So to me, that adds clarity, and I probably, if that's true of True, then I probably would have made it True by Hampton instead, because Hampton is such a respected and trusted brand, I think, in the industry.
I think there's two big perfect storm things coming together here that we're not looking at right now, but are affecting things right now that I'm having experiences with right now. One is that when you go to any brand engagement platform, it has a big red sign that's saying, sorry, there's nobody home. You can't change anything. You can't alter things. You can't even, it takes weeks to get new codes. There's just nobody sitting at a desk on the other side of the thing anymore. And they don't even allow you access into your own site to make changes relevant to the current situations. They don't. They have this COVID overlay on it that they put onto the brand side that has nothing to do with the individuality of your hotel. Just in general, this is what Hilton's doing, or in general, this is what Marriott's doing. And there's not much beyond that the hotel can address for itself unless it goes into a lateral shift into social and starts talking in personalization as to what it's doing. The second is all these fun amenity variances that these flavored slices of brand had are all put on a shelf right now. Buffets are gone. Amenities in the rooms are gone. Service type profiles are gone. Service abilities, common spaces, meeting space functionalities. Everything is just it's not the same as what it was sold as. And to your point, Lily, is now all of a sudden it's a box in a room and a location that's similar to exactly the same box in the room and location, the same brand that's right across the street. Neither can talk about themselves. Neither can make a differentiation, but both are trying to sell to the same person driving to market. And that's really going to have a very long burn impact on what's going on, because for the independent hotels, this is like heyday.
Yeah. I'm not even going to call what I'm about to do Monday morning quarterbacking. I'm going to call it more Thursday morning quarterbacking. I've had the benefit of watching some of this play out. If I was the CEO of a major brand, I would be looking at what everyone's doing right now, and I would want to be bucking the trend. I would turn to Wall Street and I would lay out, look, everyone's furloughed. All the major brands have retreated their corporate staffing substantially. Our owners are left with brand restrictions that aren't allowing them to market. I have an idea. Here's my idea. We're not going to cut spending. We're going to quadruple spending. We are going to steal all the great people who are furloughed from the other brands, and we're going all in on marketing, because that will allow us to steal share from Expedia and Booking.com, who are publicly admitting they're weak right now. Yep. We're going to be able to steal share from all the other major commercial brands in this space. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to introduce a strategy where there's a $0 onboarding to convert to our brand for the next 12 months. And the built-in expense you normally would pay up front is going to be paid out over the first 5 years of the brand agreement. And we're going to grow our catch-all brand. So if I was Marriott CEO, we'd be growing Delta. If I was Hilton CEO, we'd be growing DoubleTree. Where literally as a hotel owner, it's a system swap and some training and a sign change. Like that's what I would be doing to buck the trend, because what I have found is interesting is think about what all of us were saying at the beginning of this. So many people were saying this is the death of the independent. This is where brands are going to shine because of the consistency. And the brands have literally shot themselves in the kneecaps by having to play conservative to, make sure they survive this. But that's actually restricting what they can do for their hotel owners.
Absolutely.
So you're sure, okay, there was an opportunity for the brands, but if the brands aren't providing any of the core services, but have left all the brand restrictions in place to where, a hotel owner over here that's flying a flag still can't send an email marketing piece, still can't do the things to try and control their own destiny, but also can't call the brand.
Right, because there's nobody there.
And get them
there.
Right? So if I was Niceta or Sorensen or any of these huge players, if I was one of them, I would take a note from Jeff Bezos and I would turn to the street and I'd say, you don't know what's best for us. I do. This is what we're going to do. And we will come out the other end of this, the most dominant brand in travel in the world.
Right.
So there's my Thursday morning quarterback, because I have had the benefit of thinking about it Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Well, I mean, a lot of our customers are branded properties, and the frustration level out there is, I've never heard it as much as I'm hearing it now, because they want to try something new, right? They want to implement an additional touch point. They want to make this change on brand.com or whatever, and there is no one to help them. Nope. And they will not give a single quarter for these properties. And
Virginia said it perfectly. Sorry, look at Virginia's note. Taxation without representation. That is exactly what's happening right now.
Exactly. Yeah. And I totally agree. And when it comes to the brands having the upper hand because of their reputation and consistency and all of that, they've essentially taken that away. If I'm traveling, I don't feel any more or less secure thinking that the data that I'm looking at for a branded versus an independent hotel is accurate or up to date or anything. I'm not convinced that they're not going to be some closed and some open depending on ownership and things like that. So obviously I take that from a hotelier viewpoint, but I think that that's really where they've dropped the ball.
Well, and even better is some of the brands, I won't name them, actually put out to all of their franchise that they're not allowed to speak on social media right now. So not only are they keeping everything in place to control them, they've added one that says you can't go to the only channel we left for you, and we're not going to be here to help you with anything. That is not going to end well. I think and actually, I'll play Thursday morning quarterback the other way. If I was Barry Diller, I'd be looking at what all the brands just did and I would go, you know what? Now actually is the time. I'm turning around what I just recently said about Expedia. We're going all in on marketing. We're going to launch a brand toolkit for these branded hotels, and we're going to give them what they need. And they're going to sign multi-year contracts that their flags can't undo. I'm going right back to the property. Like, there is opportunity for someone in the power struggle that's existed this last decade. Someone on one of the sides could right now conquer the world if they were gutsy enough to turn to the street and say, we are going to lose money for the next year and a half. More money than we were telling you we were going to lose. And we will come out the other end of it a giant.
I think it goes back to, we're looking at old solutions for new problems where they're trying to get funded from government bailout support, whatever have you, to go back to where we were running the way we were running before. And to your point, we can't run that way, even if in the short term, even if it was for the next 6, 8, 12 months. The world of it is not the same as it. And this is the chance when, as you said, somebody can take and be that leader in it and say, we're going to do this. At this point, you already have location and product. It's a matter of identifying that product for those that want to use it. That's really what it's boiling down to right now. It's a marketing, revenue management, sales coordination.
And you know who's making the biggest moves right now are the owners,
yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are, the list grows longer every day of properties, especially in big markets, that will never reopen. Like,
right.
In New York, there's been several.
I got to tell you, though, the New York stuff, I mean, well, it's sad because some of those properties are really good properties. New York needed a bit of culling of inventory.
Right.
The inventory growth in New York. Oh, Ben?
Ben.
I've got to go as well. I'm just about to type. I've got to go to, but Lily beat me to it. So she's got to go.
Lily, before you leave, where can they find you? Podcast, all that fun stuff.
There we go. Thank you. You could go to tserumservices.com for all things excellence in day-to-day revenue management, or thinkupenterprises.com for some of our consultative and technology services, as well as our new podcast, where I believe we have episode 10 coming out here shortly.
Woo! And Ben?
Mr. Ben?
You can get me at 3and6.agency. Connect with me on LinkedIn. As a result of this show, I've had some of the most interesting people reach out to me. Some really, really, really crazy conversations at levels I have never spoken at before. So always happy to chat with new people. Definitely.
Well, say hi to Pinky in the Brain for me, or is he Pinky? Or are you the Brain, or how does that work? You know, Tris was here briefly.
Pinky in the Brain. One of them's taller, one of them's short and fat. So I'll let you make it your own mind. I'm saying that because I know Tris will be listening and he'll know which one he is.
I know what it is. Okay. Thank you for your time, Blue. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, guys.
So, do we want to talk about any of the topics that Robert gave to at least say we did one?
So that Robert will keep giving us this, because he says there's only 1 week that we did not get to any of his topics since he's not been with us. We should just put a little, you know what it is? You know how you put a little shot glass on the bar next to you when you're remembering old friends that used to be with you? We should just leave a little open window that says Robert on it. Just although I will be doing a webinar with him next week for Milestone.
Nice.
And I got to say, in all honesty, I've 1 week I did 21 webinars. Were participating. It was insane. I think all of us were doing crazy webinars when all this started unraveling, and people wanted to know what was going on, our opinions, whatever. And so it got kind of like dull to it. But this one is actually going to be really fun because it's a different. I'm not a big fan of funnels, but it's a different process. And Banu came up with it. Bless her heart, she's brilliant on SEO, and she's changed the whole acquisition funnel as we understand it. And just some of the semblances of it, where it's about developing the trust before developing the conversions on and on, where you're having to do, it's all about content and stuff like that. So it's going to be a fun one. Robert's actually going to be on it as well, giving some Focusrite insights on some of the market stuff that he was doing, which has been really crazy cool. But yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be, I'll put the link up on the show notes for it. So it's going to be on Tuesday next week, afternoonish sometime. I'll have to go look and see where the link is. I'll put the link up now. But anyway, what do we do about the $4,000 thing? Think it's going to happen?
I think we should talk about that. So no, I don't think it's going to happen. Okay. I don't think it'll be labeled that way. I'm actually surprised that the media hasn't jumped all over that Trump's only doing this because he has interest in the travel industry. Like, I was really shocked that wasn't the core of that idea. I do think there is going to be some form of benefit. There's going to have to be, especially if you have secondary lockdowns. I know Florida is not going to do it. At least he says he's not going to. I don't know if you saw today's numbers, but 4,000 cases in the last 24 hours. So that's 3 days in the last week that broke Florida's record for new cases for the whole time. Meaning not just like since reopening, like literally we had 4,000 cases in the last 24 hours. Now, granted, we're a huge state and it's incredibly spread out, but still. But I think you are going to see some type of aid get pushed down back into the hands of the consumer. I'm actually hoping, have you guys seen what Mark Cuban's idea was on that?
No, I didn't.
Mark Cuban had a really interesting stimulus idea, which was really based around, okay, it's this much money put in the hands of every family with a requirement that 100% of it has to be spent. You cannot save a penny of it, which actually is really brilliant.
You have to spend it by a certain time?
Yes. Yeah. And if you don't, there's some type of penalty to it, which I think is super interesting because not saying how you have to spend it, but just saying you have to spend it. So you have to either
just sit on it, can't put it in the bank account.
Yep. And so if you think about what that does, I mean, we're already seeing in the markets that are open a different traveler than that market normally sees, even though that market's ADR is holding at its traditional level. Those are the people that we've talked about multiple times, which are the people who currently are making more money because of unemployment, things like that, than they normally make. And they see it as a once in a lifetime opportunity to have a trip, right? And that's affecting, the markets in an interesting way. The problem is a lot of the next tier of household income is holding on to the money that's coming in. They're holding on to it for a rainy day or, to pay, credit card debt or something like that. That's actually not helpful to recovery. What is the most helpful if we want this economy to, start pumping hard is to actually, if you're going to put money in people's hands, that requirement of spending it is an interesting dynamic. And I doubt we'll see that, but that would be, it would give you across all sectors a boost in revenue.
Yeah.
Did I leave you all speechless? Sorry.
No. I'm just wondering when the music stops and everybody stops believing that the printed money from all the countries is as valuable as they think it is. What we're facing, because
until one or more of the major economies is completely out of this. As long as all the economies are digging into debt, printing new currency, and doing all of that, it has zero effect. It's as if none of them are doing it. Right. But what happens is if Europe comes out of this and the European Union stops doing this, anyone after them that does it, it will actually have adverse effect. So the trick is to actually try to get over the economic impacts of COVID the fastest, because you're the one who will feel the least effect from your monetary policy.
Mm-hmm. I definitely prescribe to the idea that making people or having people take the opportunity, but it's not addressing the one factor, and that is the safety requirement of people to make the decision to spend it on what we would like it to be spent on, which is travel. They might buy groceries, they might buy toys, they might buy stuff to spend it to spend's sake, which helps the economy. I'm not saying it's not, but from a travel perspective, unless we get better as an industry of communicating what we're doing and how well we're doing it consistently to make people feel safe about staying with us or eating with us or doing any of the things we're wanting them to do with us, they will find alternative places to put that money other than where we would like to see them, which is...
Yeah, but that's still, it has a trickle up effect. So let's say everyone decides to buy groceries with it. Now, all the people who benefit from groceries being purchased, farmers, truckers, the grocery workers, all of them are thriving. That changes the type of consumer they are with their own personal finances. Trickle down doesn't work.
No.
Trickle up is incredibly effective and widespread. It's really impactful. So even in the case of, okay, if travel's not in the first phase, which I'll tell you, we already see that open areas, that their attractions are open, like the reason of traveling there is open, right. They're killing it. So I don't have the same fear you have, because
maybe in more ways than one.
Yeah. But they listen, the fact that the diet industry is such a huge industry should make you feel comfortable that you're not going to have a hard time attracting travelers. We as human beings naturally do not do what is healthy and good for us. We much prefer to stoke what is gratifying for us first. Then only when faced with having to deal with the healthy thing do we actually take that serious. Right. That is ingrained in human behavior.
The one marshmallow test.
Right.
Most people are one marshmallow people, right?
Yep. So the bottom line is, if we created a policy that you had to spend whatever was being sent your way, it would evenly disperse over time to all sectors. Just because of, if it's focused early into one sector, well, that sector's now prospering. Because that sector's prospering, they're then going to go out vertically and spend with the other sectors, and it actually works.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, with a so going back to your point about groceries, as picking, especially providing that the spending piece is not so niche that it's not going to have any outward effect, right? But groceries, travel, all that stuff, it has a tremendous trickle up effect, as Ed calls it.
Mm-hmm. I guess it wouldn't be trickle up. Maybe it's the vine. It's like a vine effect. The vine grows up and spreads out because nothing trickles upwards.
No,
I guess it was poor choice of words. I was using it because of the trickle down economy mentality. That's so wrong. But I there is going to have to be some economic stimulus. And listen, the best thing that could possibly be the case for us to know that the federal government will do something, it's an election year.
Right.
So if we weren't, like, if this happened next year, we would have been screwed economically because they've got years to sort it out before they're held to their behavior or what they've done. So,
hopefully all of that money going to advertising the politicians will also have a vine effect.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's all going to Russia and China, though. Sorry, that was in bad taste. Speaking of the political thing, though, did you see Facebook's announcement?
Yeah, they're going to allow you to shut off political ads.
Facebook is allowing their users to shut off political advertising in their next release. I am so happy about that. Now, if there would only be a way to just also actively block the organic.
Right. That's the challenge, right? I mean, the ads, after a while, I think people's eyes get sort of used to the ads, and it's the organic stuff. It's when somebody in your feed posts a really stupid political something into their feed, that's going to remain, that's still there, right?
Yeah. Even if you do like an unfollow, I'm always torn by this because I always get mad at the fact that my older friends have very strong opinions. And I don't want to unfriend them because when I went to high school or something or whatever, but then they post some ridiculous piece of junk. And so I go to snooze it. Just like, you know what? At first I was like, I'm going to answer it. And I was like, no, I want to know whether they live, die, have kids, whatever. So I snooze it. It feels like I got 5 more of them that pop up after that. It's like Facebook wants to make sure you have a balanced ecosystem or something, where it's like, okay, no, I don't want to know about this. I don't want to know about this. But then I don't want to create my own echo bubble. I don't want to be just surrounded by all happy people that think like I think. I'd like to keep some other objectivity if it is objective, if it's not just diatribe.
Right, but that's the problem, Lauren. Like, none of it's objective.
No.
And you just have to kind of live with the fact that, and you can't judge people by it because too many of them do it. I used to just judge people. Like, I used to just be like, oh, I really liked you and I thought you were smart, but then I saw this and I think one of the things you have to give credit to and just recognize it in your own emotions when going through a news feed, all of this is built to get a reaction out of you.
Right.
It's to either get you to feel really good about it or really anti. Like, it's all built that way. So you gotta, if you don't want to end up in a bubble and ending up falling squarely into one of the news networks and not being able to, say, hey, you know what, there's probably more truth here than what's being told. You need to just not judge people by it because they're being manipulated by everything around them and they're reacting immediately to it. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're seeing. That's the end result you're seeing. I
do want to give good compliments out for the most recent conversations about Black Lives Matter and all of the context around that. I've seen some of the smartest dialogue and content come out of this conversation that I've seen in other polarity conversations. Of this is, literally this is black, this is white.
It shouldn't be, but part of the reason is this shouldn't be polarizing. No. Everyone should have the same opportunity. Mm-hmm. Everyone should be able to live their life not in fear of being unfairly targeted and unfairly treated. And everyone should feel that the system generally is weighted into a neutral position. However, that's not the case. So I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing more smart communication about this specific issue. Is this issue shouldn't be polarizing. Well, it really shouldn't.
I think actually one of the articles that Robert gave us also has a little bit of a repercussion of this, that a lot of women in our industry are not getting their jobs back as fast as other people. There was an article I think he threw in there. I was going to look at it real quick, but that there's a slow pace pickup of women back into positions compared to other demographics. I'm looking for that.
This stuff's always driven me nuts about people. Like, you shouldn't want anyone else to suffer. Full stop. Like, if you got to where you are by climbing up the backs of other people, then that's not a good way to live, and you're not going to truly be happy. But if you lift people up with you, you will be happy. Like, that's how you should look at life.
There was a beautiful, LinkedIn post. A man saying, I haven't been saying anything, but I just want to share. This is my beautiful wife.
I saw it out of New York.
And there were like 4,000 comments. Beautiful, ugly, beautiful, ugly, beautiful, ugly. It's so painful. Why? There should be nothing but love for that happy couple. And that
this is also one of the reasons why I don't read comments.
Good plan.
Okay, one of my favorite shows that came out of all the things we've been going through is the Some Good News Network with the guy that goes up and down.
Yes.
That was just a great. I mean, that was just. I enjoyed the heck out because there was for a while there, Renee and I weren't even watching the news. It just was too.
Stuff was just excellent.
Yeah, so but I watched that every time it came up.
I heard something that he got signed on, like
ABC or CBS or somebody picked him up. Yeah,
he actually sold the show.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Good for him.
Oh yeah, good for him. I mean, but he did such an awesome job with it too. I just thought it was really, it was nice. It was well timed and just it was perfect message at the time. And I hope it continues on as well as it did. So
yeah.
So on that happy note, it's time for me to go. I have a 1:30. I need to.
Valyn, it's always nice when you get to join us. Hopefully you do it more. I know it's tough, but it is nice to have you here.
It is. Valyn, if people want to know more about you and where to reach out, where is it they can find you?
So Norwent's website is norwent.com, and you can reach me at Valyn.Perini just about everywhere.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you very much for your time today, Valyn. Hopefully you get at this point.
Have a good weekend.
Bye now. Well, the only one that I wanted to throw back in there was the fact that Airbnb seems to not be doing as bad as I thought they were going to keep doing. And they are kind of coming back because they're teaching us hospitality again. They're doing what they did well before, which is be about the guest, not about you, and make the message about the guest and not about you.
So, yes, they are. They're doing the closest to kind of what I was saying I would do if I was in one of those roles, which is they're coming out and saying, we're here, we're doing the right thing. And the right thing is more than just a sticker on a door and Lysol in the room. They're making a land grab because everyone has shown that they're wounded and they're not afraid to go and sink into debt, because they understand that coming out the other end, you can be strong. I still don't see it as a threat to hotels, though. Airbnb is not a threat to hotels.
No. I think just I didn't expect them to recover as well as they're recovering, given their hesitancy to go back to the marketing strategy that they had before. Going to the fact that everybody is in this pause mode. I thought that they were going to sit on the wings like everybody else until they felt like there was some direction and purpose to travel that they could measure at a high level. But they jumped back into it early. They got their message about what makes you feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. How can we convey this to you? Let's have our host deal with you directly, more personally. And they've made amends with their hosts for all the stupidity that they did do early on, which was shutting things off and not going to pay people back and not giving refunds and all this other stuff. They fixed all that kind of stuff, most of it, not all of it, that kind of stuff back. So they've kind of gone in a good direction for it. But it goes to that point again is that, and I've always been amazed by ownership. Rich people like to stay rich by holding on to their money, even though they could make more money if they realized if they pushed it away from them and said, let's, like I said, go all in marketing. Let's take command of the market. I mean, I still to this day remember arguing with my ownership back in 07, 08, when they said, we're not going to market anymore. I'm like, I was fighting for inches, and now I can take miles with the same amount of money. And you're not going to let me. And it's going to cost you no more money. We're going to get all that business from this, from what we're able to do. And they're like, nope, we're just going to, you can't cost yourself into profitability.
I just wonder, though, right in this time period, which are the properties that are doing well? Because I can definitely see myself, for example, I am right now at this lovely home in Connecticut instead of in my little apartment in Manhattan. and this is the perfect time when people who never even imagined that they would love being in a house so much. And it's just great to have, animals and plants and sunshine and lake and all of these lovely things here. I can easily see why Airbnb would be doing.
But it's not just that. So first of all, Airbnb needs global financial crises. So understand, and let's think back to before the 2007, 2008 global financial crisis. Second homes were very popular. Renting your second home was something most people did not want to do because they didn't need to make the money on it, and they didn't want anyone touching their stuff. The financial crisis moved a ton of people into needing to rent that second home so they could keep it and it wouldn't financially ruin them.
Right.
And we've been on a steady state kind of growth year over year, and we were going to start entering that time where more and more people weren't needing the income from renting their second home. And and you could already see it in Airbnb's pivots of like taking on hotel inventory and things like that,
right.
Because they were feeling shrinkage of people getting back to that state of mind of, I'd rather have this be my private thing, that I don't need the money, I'm good, I've got it. Things like this give Airbnb longevity in that old model, that model of, hey, don't let your house sit empty, maximize everything and it'll pay for everything. So first of all, they need stuff like this until they can completely pivot to something else big. Secondly, they were birthed as a company out of financial crisis. Their leadership is not afraid of going all in when everyone else is running. That's one of the reasons they exist and they are as big as they are, is they were birthed in crisis. They also probably looked and said, wow, Expedia and Booking.com are both publicly admitting they're weak. Yeah, we're going to go all in. Like, who cares? Like, even if we're off by a month or two in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to make a difference. So I'm not surprised that Airbnb's, doing this. I'm not surprised they're the ones doing it, because it is a company that has thrived on global financial crisis. And then to Adele's point, I think there are so many consumers in dense cities that a vacation to them at this point would be going to a house that's not in a dense population. That in itself would be a vacation and is still very safe feeling, especially if you're driving to that.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Well, we're about at that time. Thank you.
We are 1:30.
Yeah.
So Adele, if anyone would like to learn about you or contact you, where can they find you?
Find me on LinkedIn. I'm /Hotel Adele. But you can find me by my name, Adele Gutman Milne, Milne.
Great. And Mr. Gray, if people want to watch all 13 weeks of binge-worthy video content.
Why don't we get on Netflix and you can do like a month of nonstop shows back to back. I think we got 1 month worth of shows that we can just keep you sleeping for a month. They can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. Look for this show, which is 254, because it just was a good show, as always. good company. And also the podcast, which is hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/podcasts. And Mr. Ed, if they want to know more about you and Flip2, where do they go?
So you can find Flip2 at flip.to. You can find me on social media, Edward StOnge, except for Twitter, which I will not tell you because Twitter is only for trolling people.
I will be asking and soliciting y'all's help next week. I am going for knee surgery on Thursday. So though I don't want to take medication, they tell me that the next day I'll probably want to take medication. So I could be a very interesting co-host, or I could be a catatonic. I don't know what I'm saying co-host. So I might be needing hosting assistance next week, where I'll moderate the multi broadcasting. But I think I might be a quiet, silent picture in a corner or something. I don't know. We'll figure it all out, I'm sure, between now and then.
I think a drugged Lauren would be a fun host.
Like drunk history.
Yes.
Who knows? Yeah, who knows? But oh well. Anyway, thank you everyone that watched us. Colin, I will actually answer your question about what to replace retargeting for Google on a separate send over to you. Sorry we didn't get to your question about it. And he's from Costa Rica. Hi, Costa Rica. And yeah, everyone else that watches us on the other platforms, thank you very much for your time. As always, we'll see you next week for show number 255, 11:30 Eastern, on Friday next week. So thank you, everyone. And we will see everyone next week. Bye.